Good morning, or depending when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so I've made a podcast all about the Pokémon trading card game, and you're listening to PTCG Radio. Now, this week we've got a little bit of news to get through, not a huge amount, so the news section might be a little bit quicker. We're going to have an updated look at City Championship results. We are 3 weeks in now. Patterns are starting to emerge, and that's what we tend to see with City Championships. We end up in a situation where the same decks start winning week after week. It's not like regionals where you have kind of one or two regionals, or states where it could just be, well, this one player with this one deck managed to hit good matchups on the day. We see a lot of tournaments, but even then we need to, like I've said on the last couple of podcasts, we need to go through a couple of weeks with this stuff. We want to, see how the metagame changes from week to week. It could be that a deck is really, really good one week because people don't really know how the format's going to shake up. It makes week one very uncertain. But then we can take the results from week one and we can have a look and go, all right, what's going to happen here? Are people going to realise that these good decks are good? Are they going to play hate against them? And we've seen that in the past. Decks that seemed really, really good one week only to pretty much drop off the face of the earth, I should say, on future weeks as people play hate towards that deck. But of course, even in recent years, look at things like Virizion, Genesect, Darkrai, Blastoise, they've all had their moments. We have seen situations where, one particular deck really has risen to the top, and rather than counter it, nothing quite like Gardevoir Gallade, which was back shortly before even I was playing, and I'm getting to be one of the older people in terms of experience, in a lot of tournaments I go to, where it really was the case you either played Gardevoir Gallade or you played a direct counter, hoping that you only got drawn against Gardevoir Gallade. So it's interesting to see week after week, as we get, beyond the dozens of tournaments, up to the 100 and more, over the course of a couple of weeks, really seeing how they tend to shake out. And when you've had so many tournaments over the course of a few weeks, the results, they start to become ones that you can actually trust. We start going beyond, this looks pretty good, and into the, all right, now we can actually look at this and with some certainty, say what are the good decks in the format. Before we get... and I'm going to tell you about a league challenge that I went to this past weekend. Only a league challenge, I'm afraid. I will be nice and quick, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to give you a huge report this time around. And I'm going to hopefully let you in on a little bit of the secret from UK regionals this past week. So let's get going with a little bit of news. And like I've said, the news this week is not particularly big. There's a little bit, including spring tins are coming out. Now, the only real, excitement for spring tins is in seeing what's going to be reprinted. By now, well, unless you're new to the game, in which case, let me educate you, you know that the spring tins, we're going to have 3 tins. Each of those tins is going to have a different EX promo. And everybody is sitting crossing their fingers, hoping for a Shaman tin. Hoping that we are going to have a promotional Shaman in this tin, which will completely bring down the price of Shaman and give those that don't have a playset of Shaman easy access to a playset of Shaman. Well, bad news, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, we ain't getting a Shaman, which unfortunately we probably could have seen coming. Little bit sad, I know, but these things happen. But we are getting some Pokemon. We are going to be getting... now, one shouldn't surprise you, it's a Mewtwo. We're getting a Mewtwo. But here's the interesting thing. In Japan, they recently had both of our Mewtwo EXs, not the Megas, the regular EXs, both of the EXs, which might I remind you were released as regular art and full art and secret rare art. Well, you might be thinking, well, I want to play a playset, but I need a 4th art style. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Pokemon have got you covered. We have a 4th art style coming up. We have another alternate art. Here's the thing, though. Japan has released an alternate art of both of them, and we're only getting one. So will it be the one that people tend to play in these Mega Mewtwo decks? Because remember, there's one Mega Mewtwo which is alright, and therefore one Mewtwo EX which is better than the other. Or are we going to be getting the one that we don't want to see play? And the answer is... At the moment, we've only had it announced what the Pokemon are going to be. Now, there is going to be a shiny Gyarados EX. That's going to be the one from Rage of the Broken Sky. Go back to previous podcasts where I talked about that one. It's alright. It's not amazing. People will see a bit of use for it. And Machamp EX, a Pokemon that I'm quite a fan of, but nobody's quite figured out how to use it yet. Bronzong's still not doing what it could. One thing which is mildly exciting about Machamp, firstly, Night March is seeing a little bit of a reduction in play, and Night March runs through Machamp pretty nicely, thank you very much. But also we've got the new trainer card, Max Elixir, or something along those lines, coming in Rage of the Broken Sky, which allows you to look at the top 6 cards of your deck and attach an energy you find there to one of your Pokemon. That's going to mean you can get energy on Machamp more quickly, and the big problem with Machamp is his energy cost is too high. That card can help to alleviate it. So not massively exciting Spring Tins, but Spring Tins that we should keep half an eye on nonetheless. There is a new set coming. Now, I'm confused about this new set. Usually, Pokemon tends to be fairly predictable. They tend to go about things in largely the same way. So, it's very rare that I get news and I'm a little bit confused. But I am here. Now, we've seen a whole bunch of mini-sets lately, including, for instance, Dragon Volt and the Shiny Collection, or Radiant Collection, as it was known in the English-speaking world, or I suppose in anywhere but Japan, let's say. And they were fully holo. We're getting another fully holo set, or should I say Japan is getting another fully holo set. But it's got 131 cards and 9 basic energy. That's a lot of cards, ladies and gentlemen. That's not a little that's not a little kind of extra, here's another little set which we're going to do a couple of free pack boosters for. This isn't a Double Crisis or a Dragon Volt or a Radiant Collection. This is a full-blown set. This is bigger than some of the sets we've had. So is this going to be our actual set? And the answer is, I don't know. Now, we know we're getting Breakpoint, which is our equivalent of Rage of the Broken Sky. And we know that is coming as our February set. But we're also getting our May set, which is a Psychic Kings, which has already been revealed. So I don't know where this Premium Champion Pack comes in. It's called Premium Champion Pack EX times Mega times Break. But that's 131 cards. And, I mean, like they did, we've seen that Radiant Collection was chucked in as a reprint set with Legendary Treasures, but we're not expecting a reprint set anytime soon. Similarly, we've seen that Double Crisis and Dragon Volt were released as free card blisters. So, your free pack blisters, so you get a blister with a promo or a pin and 3 packs. Well, there was 2 packs for Double Crisis. But you can't do that of a 131 card set. You'd have to buy so many free pack blisters to stand a hope of collecting the whole set. And the other option, the other thing they've done, is that they have, like we saw with, what was the most recent one? That there was one based around legendary Pokemon, which has been coming in the Hooper and Pikachu boxes, but they've basically said, there's like a dozen cards, you can have a few of them over these 2 boxes, buy both the boxes and you'll get the whole of this little set. Oh, and while we're at it, you'll also get the Pikachu promo and the Hooper promo and the pins and a whole bunch of booster packs. But they can't split 131 cards over a whole bunch of fancy boxes. I mean, when you've got a set that big, it's got to be released as a set. But we have a very strict release schedule in the UK and in the US, etc. We have one set every 3 months. Is this going to be our November set? I don't think so. Is it going to be an extra set? How's it going to be released? I am legitimately a little bit confused. Because if it was another Double Crisis or Dragon Ball, I'd be saying, they've laid down this thing. It's probably, unless there's very few cards like the Legendary Focus one, which is coming in the Pikachu EX and Hooper EX boxes, it's probably going to come as blister packs, like the Double Crisis and Dragon Volt. So I honestly don't know what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how they're going to release it. Also, these sets, although to be fair, Dragon Ball had 2 good cards, and the Rayquaza and a reprint of Super Rod. And Salamence was interesting, but was never any good. And, Double Crisis had a couple of decent cards, like Magma's Camerupt, for instance, and Team Aqua's Hideout's seen a little bit of play. Team Magma's Hideout's interesting. But are they going to just do another pretty much unplayable set? You can't release an unplayable set of 131 cards. So I honestly don't know. Also, Holo Basic Energy. Anyone that's been playing the game for a little while will know people love their Holo Basic Energy. Think Call of Legends Holo or Emerald Holo. Go and Google them if you want to see what they look like. They're all beautiful cards. So it's going to be very interesting to see how, especially if the set is just a whole bunch of garbage Pokemon, it's going to be interesting to see how much of this set sells, because this Holo Energy could end up being quite expensive if it's rare enough. And if you combine a set that doesn't sell very well, that players don't buy a lot of, think something like, for instance, Call of Legends, with Holo Energy that's quite rare, think, for instance, Call of Legends, you end up with Basic Energy, which is actually pretty valuable and does go for a few quid. Think, for instance, Call of Legends. If you didn't get the hint, I'm saying that the energy in here could end up like Call of Legends energy. But of course, it's got to be beautiful first. There's also going to be a Blastoise Mega Battle Special Pack. I love some of these Japanese names of sets. They're awesome. And it's going to have Awakening of Psychic Kings booster packs. Remember, that's our May set I previously mentioned, which will have an Alakazam EX and a Mega Alakazam EX inside. And there's going to be a Pokemon EX. Probably Blastoise, to be honest, not confirmed. We know there's going to be an EX. We know it's called Blastoise Mega Battle Special Pack. So we can probably assume there's going to be a Blastoise EX in there. Weirdly, and I kind of like this, you can only buy it using your proof of registration ticket that you get by going to the Blastoise Mega Battle Tournament in Japan. So that's kind of cool. And just in case my love for Greninja has not been well enough made clear, and that wasn't a good enough sentence, but gosh darn it, we're rolling with it over the last couple of weeks, we're getting 2 new Greninja cards. Now, don't get too excited. Between X and Y Greninja, Rage of the Broken Sky Greninja, and Greninja Break, we have been thoroughly spoiled with awesome playable Greninjas, and these two ain't going to see much play. But I think Greninja, he's been in Smash Brothers on the Wii U. He's got an amiibo, which, it's beautiful. I have one. It's beautiful. And, he's going to be out of his own deck. He's in the anime. He's coming into kind of pretty cool collectible territory. And just so we're clear, when I played X and Y, Froakie was my starter. And I've got my Froakie hat, my Froakie deck box, and my Froakie sleeves ready to go for my Greninja deck. Weirdly, I've had them long before I knew that I was going to make a Greninja deck. I quite like Froakie and Greninja. Frogadier, meh, take him or leave him. But I do like Froakie and Greninja. Anyway, let's talk about the new cards. There is a Stage 2 Greninja. It's just not as good as the X and Y or Rage of the Broken Sky ones. For 1 water energy, you can do 20 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon. Now, this is the kind of Stage 2 that has a very interesting attack. Now, if you think back to the Greninja deck, Greninja Break allows you to place 6 damage counters anywhere you like, and X and Y Greninja allows you to place 3 damage counters, both of them when you discard an energy. Although as a ruling point, it's going to be you discard 1 energy and you can do either. We haven't had an official ruling, but you're not going to be able to evolve an XY into a Break Greninja, discard 1 water energy and use both of the abilities. It's going to be a 2 energy to get them both. So, with this Greninja, it would be quite good to, place a whole bunch of damage counters around and then bring up this other Stage 2 Greninja, do 20 to everything and take a whole bunch of prizes. Spread decks, with all the healing we've got with things like Rough Seas and stuff like that, there's too much healing at the moment. Everyone's playing AZ as well. But that's all right. This isn't going to be a spread deck. It would be you put one of these Stage 2s in, and it gives you an alternate win condition. Essentially, you spread your damage around strategically, and then you get one of these Greninjas out and try and sweep with it. Here's the problem. There are 2 really playable Greninjas. The X and Y has the awesome ability that does 30 damage when you discard a water from your hand, and then the other Greninja just has an attack for 1 colourless energy that does 20 damage and ability locks your opponent. You need 2 of each of them. If there was only 1 playable Greninja, I'd be a big fan of sticking this Stage 2 in, because I like the first attack. It's one of those things that once every 7, 8, 9, 10 games will be really useful, and you can't afford to spend many slots in your deck on this. But as a kind of one-off, chuck it in, you never know when you might need it, I'm all in favour. The problem is, if you can only play 4 Greninja and you've already got 2 that you want to play, you really need a 2-2 split. So, like it, not going to see play. It's also got an attack for a water and a colourless that does 60 times the number of heads from 2 coin flips. It ain't good enough. Now, weirdly, there's also Ash's Greninja EX. Now, because it's called Ash's Greninja EX, it means you could, in theory, play 4 Greninja EX and 4 Ash's Greninja EX. And you could play 4 Greninja as well, if you so wished, and have 12 Greninja cards in your deck. But don't. Regular Greninja EX, not that good, ladies and gentlemen. This one, also not that good. For a water and a colourless, 20 times the number of damage from 3 coins. Meh. And coin flips. And for a water colourless, 130 damage, and it can't use this attack next turn. It ain't good enough. There are other water Pokemon out there. I'm all in, and please go back a couple of episodes to when I talked about Greninja. I am well in favour, ladies and gentlemen, of a Greninja-based deck. This is on, and believe me, I am going to be buying a 4-4-4 Greninja line and playing it a lot when it comes out. I'm not going for Worlds this year because I'm unlikely to be able to go. Best friend's wedding and all. But there is I play decks that I like, and oh my goodness, I have not been excited about this excited about a deck in quite a while. So, actually, there's one more bit of news. It's not really news. It has been confirmed that and we all kind of suspected this, and it was well late in the year to announce anything else, but it has been confirmed that the World's qualification is the same as last year. That means the same requirements for getting from day 1 into day 2, the same number of automatic entrants, top 22 in Europe, getting into day 2, the top X number of people, 22 in Europe, in terms of championship points. I believe it's 16 in North America. And the cutoff for day 1 of Worlds is 300 points. Given how many tournaments have been going, to announce anything higher than 300 would have provoked such a big backlash, Pokemon couldn't have done it. People have been planning as if they need 300 points. If Pokemon had turned around and gone, now you need 600 points for day 1, there would have been a lot of people who have been to tournaments and aren't planning to go to enough to make 600. So, there we go. Not big news, but something you should know about. So my tournament this past weekend, I collaborated with the lovely Joe Bernard of Omnipoke. Check him out on YouTube. After you've checked out my videos, I've now finished uploading all of the rounds from Newport Regionals. They're all on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/PTCGRadio. So if you haven't gone on and watched all of those videos yet, I heartily recommend you do so sooner rather than later. I recorded 1 game per round at this league challenge I was at the weekend. None including me this time, which is good. I don't like putting myself on stream. I like recording other people. And they will all be going up online in the next few days, you lucky, lucky people. So anyway, moving very swiftly on from that, we need to have a chat about my tournament, only very quickly. I played an Yveltal list. It was a weird list, mostly Joe Bernard's list, made a few changes, 30 different cards, lots of one-offs. It was basically Yveltal with Yveltal EX, and then there were a couple of Darkrai there, and there was a Seismitoad. It was played with Maxis, but with 1 Archeops and 1 Gallade. It didn't beat anything automatically, but it had outs for everything. Round 1, I play a lovely chap called Carl, who I've met at a whole bunch of Sutton Coldfield tournaments, never played before. He's playing Blastoise, and I win on the last turn of the game. We trade back and forth. I'm playing Hex Maniac, but I never get a turn to use it, because I'm always having to play too many cards to get the return KO. The good thing about playing Yveltal against Blastoise is you do have the ability to KO their Caldeos using Dark Patch and Yveltal. Big problem here was I wasn't playing Laser Verbank, so my Gallade could never knock out EXs, and that was a slight problem. But I win and I go to 1-0. Game 2, I'm playing a lovely chap called Stephen, the son of the tournament organiser, and he's playing Manectric Bats, and it's not a very long game. I go first, get a turn 1 Gallade set up beautifully. I think at the end of my turn 1, I had an Yveltal active with an energy, an Yveltal EX on the bench with an energy and a muscle band, and a Gallade on the bench as well because I'd had the turn 1 maxis. He starts Shaman, can't get it out of the active spot. So turn 2, I KO his Shaman with my Yveltal EX. Turn 3, I KO a Manectric with my Gallade. And turn 4, I KO, I think it was a Shaman with my Gallade. And I win in 4 turns. Not a terribly competitive game. It was best of 1, I should add. Game 3, I'm drawn against Luke Kirkham. Luke, I can't help but top cut every bloomin' tournament Kirkham, because he is top cutting everything this season. Although I think there is one he went to that he didn't cut. So, playing his Blastoise, he goes first and gets 6 energy on a Caldeo turn 1, which is crucial, ladies and gentlemen, because that's how many energy a Caldeo needs to KO an Yveltal EX. I take it down to the wire, I have a turn to win, I have 2 Dark Patch and a Muscle Band in hand, but I don't have an Yveltal EX. I'm only playing 2, I can't draw into the one that I've Super Rodded back into my deck. This is on me, ladies and gentlemen. I should have been playing a third Yveltal EX. Yeah, Luke went first. Yeah, Luke had an amazing start. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't playing enough Yveltal EX, and I won my game 1 against Blastoise after I drew an Yveltal EX from the prizes. I should have been playing more Yveltal EX. Speaking of which, round 4, I'm playing the lovely Siobhan Butcher. He was on the national stream, which you can find on my YouTube channel. He was in the seniors final. He's aged up to masters. He's playing Seismitoad Bats. And what I loved about his deck, well, I mean, I loved Inferior. I didn't like playing against it. 4+ power. At one point, I'm sitting there with an Yveltal with 60 damage on, and he's used all 4 of his lasers, and I'm thinking, brilliant. He can only do 50 damage with Quaking Punch with his Muscle Band, so he cannot KO me. I've got 1 more turn. Dude drops a double plus power to get the KO. It's my worst start of the day. Annoying given that I'm playing against Seismitoad. No turn 1 Gallade as I got, I think, in every other game. I had a bad start, and you can't afford a bad start against Seismitoad. The game didn't go very well. The game wasn't terribly close. What I will say is this. Against Seismitoad decks, if you get an Yveltal EX out, you basically win unless your opponent hits heads on lasers and you stay asleep. Yveltal goes through Seismitoad, Yveltal EX goes through Seismitoad so quickly it becomes a very favourable matchup. But if you have a bad start, ladies and gentlemen, and can't get going, don't get your Yveltal EX out, you can't win. And that's what happened. Once again, I will remind you, I was only playing 2 Yveltal EX. So quite frankly, at this stage in the tournament, I'm thinking, if I played 3 Yveltal EX, could be 4-0 here. But I didn't, and I wasn't. I was 2-2. Final round, I play against Luke's brother Corey. I go first, get a couple of energy onto the field with an Yveltal and an Yveltal EX. I'm going first, and I decide, you know what? I can't cut. I can't make top 4. So I judged him. Just thought, let's see what a turn 1 judge does. Turns out, turn 1 judge, awesome. I didn't draw into too much from my judge, but I had Pokemon on the field with energy, and I ran through him in about 3 turns. Turn 1 judge is awesome, especially if you go first and get a half-decent setup. Now, full disclosure, I scooped to Corey this game. I was always going to, but when I scoop to people, I like to beat them and then scoop. Because if you just scoop to them, then in the back of their mind, they're thinking, well, he scooped to me, but I probably would have beaten them anyway. No. I like to actually beat them. And then if I'm going to scoop, I scoop. Now, I have talked about scooping before, and I've talked about the fact that I don't do it often. Not a huge fan of it. And if you scoop one person into top 4, that does not make you a nice person, because you're also scooping somebody out of top 4. So I suppose I should apologise to, I think it was either Reese Young or Siobhan Butcher, who I scooped out of top 4. Reason I did it, very simply, Corey's a lovely chap. He's a younger brother, a very good friend of mine. He's going for Worlds. He needs all the points he can get. And I want to see the dude qualify for Worlds. Feel free to send me angry tweets at the Wassy or abusive emails at ptcgradio.hotmail.co.uk. At hotmail.co.uk. It's a decision which I made consciously, and I don't regret doing so. As it turns out, he made top 4, and I was correct in my assessment. I think had I not scooped and I'd taken the win, I would have jumped from 9th to 7th. Wouldn't have made a difference. So I finish officially 2-3, in reality 3-2. I still consider Yveltal to be the best and most fun deck in Expanded. I wasn't playing an optimum list, there are changes I need to make, but it doesn't lose to anything. Yveltal, Vespiquen, Flareon, you get your Archeops out, and yes, they can Hex, and yes, they can use Energy Evolution on the Eevee, and yes, they can use Evo Soda, but it really helps with the matchup. Combination of Hex Maniac and Yveltal EX really help against Blastoise. Manectric Bats is a pretty decent matchup if you've got the Gallade ready to take down the Manectric, because Yveltal takes down the Bats, although it's far from an auto-win. Fighting Bats is a very good matchup because you've got the Yveltal and the Yveltal EX, and they don't really have any good attackers against you. And then there's Seismitoad decks, including Seismitoad Giratina and Seismitoad Bats, which literally come down to, can you stream and keep energy on your Yveltal EX? If the answer is yes, you're probably going to win. If the answer is no, you are definitely going to lose. But it doesn't out and out beat those decks. Oh, and Night March again, if you're playing Baby Yveltal and Gallade and you play very carefully and you don't let them get KOs on your EXs, then it's not a bad matchup. You've got to be very careful and you've got to play at least 3 regular Yveltal. So, I like the matchups for Yveltal in Expanded, but it's one of those decks, it's a classic 50-50 deck. It doesn't beat anything per se, and it doesn't lose to anything per se. You sit down against Manectric Bats and you're thinking, I can win this, but it's far from a guarantee. You sit down against Blastoise and you think, I can win this, but it's far from a guarantee. Or to put it in better terms, to be honest, you sit there against the Blastoise thinking, I can win this if I can stream my Yveltal EXs and I can Hex once or twice. And you sit down against Vespiquen Flareon and you sit down thinking, I can win this as long as I can get my Archeops out early and keep up the prize trade with non-EX Pokemon, and that they don't get too many turns where they can evolve. Things like that. Because obviously they can play Hex Maniac to turn off the Archeops or use all the other stuff. So let's have a look at City Championships, ladies and gentlemen. And Week 3 saw a little bit of a repeat of the previous couple of weeks, if I'm honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, it's not really, we're not seeing too much new stuff, if I'm completely honest with you. So let's have a look at, the top deck was Yveltal Zoroark. 7 wins, 5 seconds, 10 top 4s. Now, I'm taking the results here off the Charizard Lounge, which I'm going to give a big shout out to because they do a truly wonderful job of collating this information. But as always, I am a stubborn man and I'm going to disagree. My second place deck, using their information, I want to make very clear, Mega Manectric EX. 5 wins, 4 seconds, 4 top 4s. Now, Night March actually got more top cuts with 16, but it had 2 wins, 3 seconds, and 11 top 4s. So Night March was good at getting top 4, but not good at winning. Whereas Mega Manectric, 5 wins, 4 seconds, and only 4 top 4s. It might have had 3 less top cuts, but it had 3 more wins and 1 more second place. So I'm well up for crowning that second best deck in the format. Third place, Night March. And then there was nothing else that was really in the same league. Manectric Crobat was doing quite well, and Entei Charizard are coming back. Now, what I'm going to do, I know a couple of players who have done well with Entei. Next week, we're going to have a big chat about Entei. I'm going to wet your whistle this week. I'm going to give you an introduction to the deck. But what I'm going to try and do, I'm going to have a quick chat to a couple of people who have cut with the deck, who have played the deck very well, and I'm going to give you a proper report on the deck next week when because I know the deck, I've looked into it, I've made a list and I've played a couple of games. What I haven't done is sat down and I've talked to people who have played it, but I haven't sat down and had a really good chat with people who have cut with it. So I'm going to introduce it, but I'm not going to, because I'm a fan of playing it without the Charizard, if I'm honest. Anyway, so let's have a look at these decks. Yveltal Zoroark, some play Gallade, some don't. And it's not listed whether they do or don't. Here's the deal. Now, I'm a fan of Yveltal, and I'm still claiming responsibility for Yveltal Vespiquen Bats. Well, Yveltal Vespiquen, the Bats really were Joe's idea. Certainly, I think me and Joe can lay claim that we popularised Yveltal in the UK, because before we were playing it, most other people weren't, and now it's big, and it was really big at the weekend. I mean, the regional in the UK, we had an Yveltal on Yveltal final. Although Ryan Morehouse now, I think he won with Yveltal Gallade. I think he's done very well 2 weeks in a row with Yveltal Gallade, has Ryan Morehouse. He's clearly got the best list for it at this stage. So, why does it win? Well, regular Yveltal takes out Night March. It's a good non-EX attacker. You can play Yveltal EX, which takes out things like Seismitoad and Giratina and, Lucario EX, for instance. Lucario bats, what do they do against an Yveltal EX? The best thing they've got is Hawlucha that's got 70 HP. Now, Hawlucha is easily taken care of using regular Yveltal. And as soon as they try bringing out a Lucario, Yveltal EX comes out and beats Lucario. So it's got good matchups against Yveltal bats. It's got a very good matchup against Night March, because if you can just use Baby Yveltal, then you absolutely win. Mega Manectric EX is a very tough match, but you've got Zoroark. And for 1 energy, Zoroark can do 110 to Mega Manectric, and they can only do 110 back. To put it another way, Zoroark Break, 2-hit KOs Mega Manectric for 2 prizes. Mega Manectric 2-hit KO Zoroark for 2 prizes. I like that trade. Now, obviously, it's essentially a stage 2 that you're manually evolving. But let's not forget that Baby Yveltal can start setting up, and you've got Yveltal EX for emergencies, and some of these decks are playing Gallade, which hits Mega Manectric for weakness. For 1 DCE, you get a 1-hit KO as long as you've played a supporter, which you will always have played a supporter. So it's just a matchup thing, to be honest. Baby Yveltal takes out Night March. Zoroark, Yveltal, and especially if you play Gallade, can really do some damage against Mega Manectric. Manectric Crobat is exactly the same deal. If you play Gallade and get it out, you're basically going to win. Bats don't do that much against you because you're not playing these low HP Pokemon other than your Zoroark. But just, as long as they haven't got 2 Golbats ready to put down 2 Crobats, you can be okay placing down your Zoroark. And you can always play something like Wally if you really want as a one-off. To evolve, you put down a Zoroark and evolve to a Zoroark straight away. And that's basic. Now, it doesn't have a great matchup against Entei Charizard, which we'll go into in a minute. But if you look at the other top decks, Yveltal Zoroark has good matchups. Going into Mega Manectric, it's very simple. It hits 110 damage for 2 energy. It's got 210 HP. It can heal 30 damage every turn using Rough Seas. And it can build up anything else on the bench, maybe an Articuno, which can take an extra prize if it takes a KO, maybe a Regice to block attacks from EXs. I mean, we saw Jamie Serhan in the UK use it to build up Giratina, and I did put one or at least one of his games on my YouTube channel, so have a quick look back, you'll find that one. He was one of the chaps we recorded. I think it was round 2 of the Newport Regionals we had him on there. So, quite frankly, it's not necessarily one of those decks like Yveltal Zoroark where you sit down and go, this beats this, this beats this. It's just a really efficient, consistent deck. And because it attaches energy from the discard pile, you can just play a Battle Compressor or 2, and you can really play any basic energy that you like, to be honest with you. All you really need to do is just make sure that you put a couple of basic energy in there, Battle Compressor it early, and then attach it with Mega Manectric. Night March is just Night March. It feasts on the X decks. It's not doing as well as it was because it's easily counterable. Doesn't have a great matchup against anything that plays for Baby Yveltal. Can struggle against Mega EXs because it takes a lot of Night Marches to get the KO on the Mega. And it can run out of resources and stuff, but it still attacks for a DCE with a basic and can one-hit KO anything. It's a good deck. There are counters, but it's still a very good deck. And Manectric Crobat. Now, Lucario has slid down the list a little bit. Manectric Crobat had 3 wins a second and 5 top 4s. Lucario had 1 win, 4 seconds, and a top 4. So, they're pretty close, but Mega Manectric had 3 more top cuts overall and 2 more wins. Although Lucario had 5 finals and Manectric Crobat only had 4 finals. So Manectric takes it, but it's closer than it appears. And yeah, it really is as simple as that. And it's, But both of these decks do the same thing. You hit for efficient damage with Manectric or Lucario while using bats. The bats are incredibly good against Night March because they'll take easy KOs on the low HP Pokemon that you use in Night March, allowing you to jump ahead in the prize trade. And, that against even anything, if you've got a Lucario that's hitting for, 70 to 90 damage on turn 1 for a single energy while augmenting its damage with bats, that's good, ladies and gentlemen. The same thing with Manectric. If you're hitting 40 to the active, 20 to the bench while using your bats and then hitting, 120 for 2 energy on turn 2, that's really quite good. Really quite good. Now, that was the week 3 results. If we go into expanded for week 3, it's more of the same. I mean, the top 4 decks, Vespiquen, Yveltal, Seismitoad Crobat, Blastoise. Seismitoad Giratina taking a little bit of a tumble, just a second and a top 4. But there is a big gulf. Donphan's in 5th, but 2 seconds and a top 4. That's it. Whereas, Vespiquen, 4 wins, a second, 4 top 4s. Yveltal, 2 wins, 2 second, 3 top 4s. Seismitoad Crobat, a win, 2 seconds and 3 top 4s. And Blastoise had 2 wins and 3 top 4s. Clearly, and Seismitoad Giratina does appear to be falling back a little bit, just because Seismitoad Crobat, essentially, is a more efficient version of the deck. And Giratina's not shutting decks down like it used to. Yveltal's good against Giratina. Blastoise is good against Giratina. So Giratina is not blocking the decks like it used to, so you switch out the Giratina for the bats, and you've still got the trainer lock and the efficient damage. And the players that would have been top cutting with Seismitoad Giratina are now top cutting with Seismitoad Crobat. So that's seeing a little bit of a dip, but it's everything we'd expect. Vespiquen is still the best deck in the format, and then Yveltal, Seismitoad, and Blastoise are bringing up the rear quite nicely. It is as simple as that. Now, if we look at the overall results for the City Championship so far, it really just backs up what we've been saying so far. Now, let's have a look at it in terms of total championship points awarded. And it's becoming very, very clear that we have a top 3 decks. In first place with 2,210 championship points, Yveltal Zoroark. Second place with 1,680, we've got Night March. Remember, Night March is starting to slip back a little bit. It's not the powerhouse it once was, but it's still clearly in the top 3. And in third place, Mega Manectric with 1,560. I think you could easily switch round those two or just put them as second/third Night March/Mega Manectric. I don't think there's much to choose between them. But Yveltal Zoroark is clearly the number 1. It's 530 championship points above anything else. To put it in perspective, there are only 6 decks that have more than 530 championship points. And then in 4th/5th, we have Manectric/Lucario with Crobat. And Manectric version's got 760, Lucario's got 720. So in Standard, it's very clear. Yveltal Zoroark is the best deck for now, with or without Gallade, we don't quite know. The second best deck, well, the top 3 is rounded out by Night March and Mega Manectric, and I think they're too close to pick between. And the top 5 is rounded out by Manectric Bats and Lucario Bats, and again, I think it is too close to pick between. And then in Expanded, we have a clear top 5, but really we have a clear winner. With 1,040 championship points, remember there have been many less, or many fewer, I should say, expanded tournaments. We have Vespiquen with 1,040. In second/third, we have Seismitoad, Giratina, and Blastoise with 660 and 650, i.e. the same. And rounding out the top 5, we have Yveltal with 480 and Seismitoad Crobat with 420. Let me be clear, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen a switch. Between these weeks, we are seeing a switch from Seismitoad Giratina to Seismitoad Crobat. Now, if we add up Seismitoad Giratina and Seismitoad Crobat, we actually end up with 1,080 and it jumps into first place. So Seismitoad and Vespiquen are really the top 2 decks here. Blastoise and Yveltal are clearly the next best, and after that, everything else is have a go. Night March, 270, Mega Rayquaza, 260. You know, they're struggling to be within 200 points of the top 4. In fact, none of them. If we put the two Seismitoad decks together, then we have Yveltal with 480, and the next is Night March with 270. So, this is what I like about City. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of today's podcast. It does start to shake out, and we can start to see, with some level of certainty, what the top decks are. In Expanded, we've got Vespiquen and Seismitoad, followed by Blastoise and Yveltal. And in Standard, we've got Yveltal at the top, then Night March and Mega Manectric, then Manectric Crobat, Lucario Crobat. I'm not doing tiers, screw tiers, and also, don't be telling me Tier S and Tier 1.5 and all that rubbish. No. Count, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2, 3. If you insist on putting them into tiers, it's quite simple. Yveltal Zoroark is clearly at the top. It's Tier 1. Night March and Mega Manectric are clearly behind it, but above everything else. They're Tier 2. Manectric Bats and Lucario Bats are clearly behind them, but above everything else. They're Tier 3. I don't like the whole tier thing, but if you want to put it in tiers, it's the only logical way to do it. Similarly, in Expanded, Vespiquen's Tier 1. Vespiquen and Seismitoad decks are Tier 1. Blastoise and Yveltal are Tier 2. It's as simple as that. None of this Tier S. If there's a Tier S and then a Tier 1 and Tier 2. If it's a Tier 1 and a Tier 1.5, it's Tier 1 and Tier 2. We know how to count, ladies and gentlemen. If there is one deck alone at the top, it's Tier 1. Don't be like Microsoft. Microsoft think it goes 1/361. No, Microsoft. That's not how counting works. Come on, guys. If you're going to do tiers, just use numbers. I don't have a lot of pet hates, to be honest, but possibly my biggest pet hate in Pokemon is people who refuse to count with tiers. Best decks, 1. Next best, 2. Next best, 3. When did we forget how to count? Won't somebody please think of the children? Now, I'm going to stop in a minute. I've stopped that a little bit now. But I'm going to stop the whole podcast. But first, I want to have a little look at Entei. Now, there were 2 Enteis that we saw in Ancient Origins, and they're both okay, but we are focusing on the Omega Double Entei. Or is it Theta Double? I think it's Theta Double. It's Theta Double. The Theta Double Entei. It can have 2 Pokemon tool cards attached to it. And that really helps. Let's say you're playing Assault Vest. Assault Vest reduces any damage done by 40 from a Pokemon with special energy. Let's say you're playing 2 Assault Vest. That means Night March is doing minus 80 damage. Minus 80? That's ridiculous. Seismitoad, with a Muscle Band and a Giovanni's, does nothing. Literally nothing. How ludicrous is that? Or you put 2 Muscle Bands on, and Flame Screen for 30 damage becomes Flame Screen for 70 damage. In fact, Flame Screen reduces damage done by 30 the following turn. So you put 2 Assault Vests on Entei, and then use Flame Screen, and something attacking you with any special energy attached, it's reduced by 110. 110, ladies and gentlemen. It's ludicrous. Heat Tackle, 130 damage for 2 fire, 2 colour. That's 130. You stick 2 Muscle Bands on, it does 170 and KOs most EXs. Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, you've got Blacksmith to build him up, and you've got DCE, which can be used as well. So an Entei can go from no energy to Heat Tackle in one turn using a Blacksmith and a double colourless. Let's not forget, you've got Fiery Torch, the trainer card, where you discard 1 fire and draw 2 cards. Let's not forget Scorched Earth, the stadium that has the same effect. Fire's gotten a lot of love, ladies and gentlemen. You can put energy on the field very, very quickly, and then you've got these Enteis, which, okay, this Entei doesn't do a huge amount of damage. But when you've got double Muscle Band, double Assault Vest, it really doesn't matter. And let's not forget that the other Entei for 2 energies got Combat Blaze. 20 damage plus 20 more for each of your opponent's benched Pokemon. They've got a full bench. That's 120 damage for 2 energy. That's pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Ancient Origins, it's the Theta Double one that you really want here. Those two tools are just too good. And the most obvious one, I mean, obviously you can use something like a Hard Charm, but the most obvious things here are Assault Vest and Muscle Band. They really do the absolute trick. Now, Hard Charm reduces it by 20, Assault Vest reduces it by 40, but only if they've got a special energy attached. Maybe play a mixture. You know, let's say you've got a Manectric with just one energy attached. If you've got two Hard Charms, they put a Muscle Band on, they're still doing nothing. How awesome is that? Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about that deck properly next week. Now, I'm going to leave you. This is, quite frankly, that's enough for this week. Next week, we're going to talk all things Entei. I'm going to tell you about more tournaments. It's going to be a jolly old time, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be, quite frankly, wonderful. For now, make sure that you check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/PTCGRadio. Make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that you remind yourselves that there is a complete database, a complete record of all of the episodes of PTCG Radio so far, except 2 missing episodes, which might have been lost or I might have misnumbered, over at ptcgradio.wordpress.com. You can find me on Twitter @TheWassy. You can email me at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed on iTunes, make sure you do so. And if you have subscribed on iTunes, then get yourselves to iTunes and let's have a comment. Let's have a review. If anyone puts some comments on their reviews on there, maybe I'll read them on a future podcast. Never done that before, but you never know. Some podcasts I listen to do, so why not me? Anyway, until then, look after yourselves. Have a lovely week. What's the date next week? Yeah, next week we're on the 23rd. That's fine. We'll still have a podcast next week. We'll talk Entei. Entei's red. Christmas is red. What more could you want, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you very much for listening. Look after yourselves till next week. Enjoy the new Star Wars movie. My name's Ross, and you've been listening to PTCG Radio.